Grassi Posse, welcome to another episode of Game of Toms. Today we are going to be reviewing Season 7, Episode 4, and holy mackerel, I was talking about it last week, how they kind of fast-forwarded through those battle sequences, but they did no such thing this week, and I told you there was going to be a huge budget spending scene that was going to be coming up, and this week we got it, because the last 20 minutes were just absolutely incredible. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that near the end. Let's kind of dissect the episode bit by bit. And again, we are now more than halfway done with this season. We only have 3 new episodes left. And I don't feel very good about that. Even though the last episode's supposed to be about 90 minutes, it still doesn't make me feel good that I'm going to have to wait at least a year for more Game of Thrones to come back. And there's rumors that it's not coming back until 2019, which would just be even worse. But we'll solve that problem when we get to it. We opened up with the aftermath of the Highgarden siege. Of course, you have Olenna telling Jaime that she, in fact, was the one behind killing Joffrey. You had Bronn and Jaime interacting, and again, Bronn has kind of been absent the past few seasons. He shows up every now and then. He was there with the Freys last season, but I miss his wit. And he's one of the better characters on the show when he gets time and he gets lines. But the big thing from this episode, and this was something that I was trying to guess last week, was that Daenerys was going to come in and attack them and the gold wasn't going to be delivered to King's Landing, hence not being given to the Iron Bank. Now, one of those things did happen, but the gold seemed to make it safely to King's Landing to go to the Iron Bank, meaning that Cersei can fund this war so she can continue to fight against Daenerys. So the Iron Bank is not really going to be a force anymore. So, I mean, it's interesting because they brought up a couple characters, like they brought up the idea of this elite task force, like this golden team that goes out and gets money from people who owe it. And so I'm wondering if Cersei is going to use them to kind of try and get Tyrion, to try and get after Daenerys. It's going to be interesting what she does with that. We also see Bran and Littlefinger interacting, which is something that I don't think we've ever seen in this show. And it was very interesting because you had Littlefinger giving Bran the dagger that was supposed to kill him in season 1 by the person that was hired to assassinate him. And one of the best parts about that is when Littlefinger is talking about chaos, Bran fires back chaos as a ladder. And if you recall, that's from a couple seasons ago when the wildlings are climbing the wall and Littlefinger's giving his speech about chaos being a ladder. And Littlefinger he's shook. He doesn't know what to do with that because Littlefinger is losing his own game. He's been this guy who's been able to manipulate, get what he wants from just about everybody in this series, even Sansa to a certain degree, because Sansa does owe him for the Knights of the Vale. But that being said, he's playing games now with the Three-Eyed Raven, and it's pretty evident that Littlefinger is over his head, and if he continues down this path, I don't see it ending well for him, but we'll see how that goes. Mira also is like, all right, I'm going to go, and she has to be so happy, by the way, because Bran has finally got a wheelchair, so she doesn't have to drag his ass around anymore on a sled. But that being said, Bran, it finally got acknowledged this week after the weird interaction between Bran and Sansa last week, and he's like, yeah, you look beautiful the night that you were sexually assaulted. Not the first thing you should say to your reunited sister, but It's interesting that you see that Bran is not himself anymore. He admits that. He goes, I remember what it's like to be Bran Stark, but I remember so much else. I mean, imagine being essentially a god, and now he's almost not human anymore. And Mira even says, you died in that cave. So another big reunion that happens this week is Arya finally comes home to Winterfell. We saw a little bit of her Matrix moves when she was dodging the guard's punch, and that was pretty awesome. Her and Sansa, her reunion, they haven't seen each other since season 1. And, I mean, I'm not terribly excited about that reunion because Sansa and Arya never really got along with one another. It wasn't like, oh, man, really hoping that they see each other again. And it was funny because Arya was talking about a list of the people that she's going to kill. And Sansa's like, haha, you're so funny. But once they talk to Bran, and he goes, yeah, Cersei's on your list. And Sansa's like, oh, she wasn't kidding. That's a thing. You actually have a list of killing people. Sansa has to feel super awkward at this point because her brother Bran is essentially a god who has no empathy and is essentially Jeffrey Dahmer Jr. Arya is a cold-blooded serial killer turned assassin who's just going to kill everybody. Jon is a resurrected corpse who is also the king of the North. I mean, what's Sansa going to do here? She really does. She's just like, hey, I got red hair until you can put leather on armor. I just feel like she doesn't do anything. I don't know. Maybe that's just me being too critical. But I mean, like, what do you think about it? I mean, it's tough. She just doesn't do anything for me. Like, I feel like they're trying to find something for Sansa to do. And I understand, because, like, all the Starks are scarred. Like, they're coming in differently. They're very different from season 1. They're very different from when they were all together. They're completely different people. And so that being said, Sansa, I think, is still trying to find her place. She's getting good because she's learned from Littlefinger. She's learned from Tyrion. She's learned from Cersei. I'm just waiting for, like, that big moment where she finally comes into her own and I'm like, yes, that's what we know Sansa for, instead of just knowing her for all the terrible things that are happening to her instead. That being said, Brienne also had this amazing showdown with Arya, and listen, that storyline with Arya dragged out for 2 seasons, her becoming an assassin, but it was great just to see that. And Brienne and Arya's reunion after Brienne defeated the Hound was incredible to watch. She's flowing like a water dancer, just like back in season 1 with Syrio, and it was really, really awesome to see as Arya has really progressed and is a force to be reckoned with. You also went back to Dragonstone and saw all of the dragon glass, and Jon is saying this is all we will ever need. So they are all set when it comes to dragon glass. They just need more people, which is where Daenerys comes in. And she even says at one point, she goes, I will help you. I will help the people in the North. You just gotta bend the knee. And Jon's like, yeah, see, the thing about that is I spend a lot of time with wildlings. I don't really bend knees anymore. And Dany kind of ripped him apart for that. And you also saw the cave drawings, which helped, I think, Dany understand that Jon's not just a crazy person, and there are White Walker zombies that are coming to kill everybody. You saw the first men and the children working together to fight the White Walkers. And at the same time, you also have Dany ripping into Tyrion. And so this is something that we haven't really seen because Tyrion he's messed it up. And so much so that Dany actually questioned, maybe you don't want to hurt your family. And so Dany's been listening to these people. She's been listening to Tyrion. She's been listening to what her advisors say. But in the whole time, she should have been listening to Olenna. And Olenna says, be a dragon. You're a dragon. Go do that. Jon warning her, don't go and burn random people alive because then you're just going to be like the same old, same old. Be different. And so that was a pretty cool scene to see. And also at the same time, telling Dany when they're like, all right, guys, good news. We took Casterly Rock. Bad news, we lost everything else. Everything is going very, very poorly. And you think when the season begins that Dany's just going to roll over people. But that's not the case considering Cersei really is a force to be reckoned with. And I don't see this being resolved this season. It's going to be, I mean, we have 3 episodes left. I can't think that Cersei and Dany are going to, one of them is going to wound up being victorious by the end of the season. But I'm curious, but I mean, it's going to have to be really rushed in order for that to happen. Also, we're bringing this up again. Incest is going to happen. Like, it's going to happen because Jon is, like, going to get delayed. He's not going to make it in time. And there's tension there. And Davos even says that because Jon's like, oh, she's got a good heart. Davos is like, I see you staring at her heart. It's going to happen. Like, it's going to be aunt and nephew and, yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm so torn about it in that gross, like really gross, but at the same time, like, they're kind of perfect for each other. I mean, the Targaryens have been doing it for a while. I do like Jaime. I mean, you know, if a brother and sister can do it, no, we're going down. I mean, what do you think? Like, has it gotten better? Is there ever going to be a point where you're okay with this? They're going to do it. I'm telling you, they're going to do it, and it's going to be so wrong and yet so right. You also had the reunion between Theon and Jon. I'm surprised Jon didn't cave Theon's head in, considering what Theon did all the way back in season 2 in capturing Winterfell and essentially making it a hell on earth. But the only thing keeping him alive is the fact that he saved Sansa. And then, of course, let's go to the final season, the final scene in which you had an amazing 20-minute battle. We finally saw the Dothraki in action. After 7 seasons of going, the Dothraki are really good at fighting. We've never seen that. We've never seen them on horses we've never seen them really go balls to the wall and attack somebody. And we've saw it. You thought it was a T-Rex coming because you heard that roar. And damn, that was a great scene. The Dothraki, they're on horses, and they're standing on them, and they're shooting, and they're ruthless. And at one point, one of the Dothraki horsemen is telling Tyrion, like, you guys can't fight. Like, your men can't fight. We are better than you. And of course, you have Dany coming in on Drogon and just burning everybody. And so this is where I was very torn, because I don't want Bronn to die. I still have faith that Jaime's going to turn himself around. But once Bronn pulled out the big crossbow, I have never been more stressed out ever watching this show, because I really didn't want the dragon to die at all. And Bronn got a shot off. I'm assuming that Drogon's going to be out of commission for a couple of weeks, or like a couple of episodes in this case, because he did take a hit. One of the things I want to point out before we get to the final scene is that it seemed to linger on the burning of people and how gruesome and terrible it actually is, that like people are actually melting in their armor. Tyrion was looking at it, Jaime was looking at it, Bronn was looking at it, and the one person that wasn't kind of being like, wow, this is really messed up, was Dany. And so it just goes to show, again, maybe kind of has some of her father in her, and again, all is fair in love and war, but Dragonfire is ruthless, and the fact that you are burning alive is not a pleasant thing to see, and I'm wondering if that's something that's going to come back and potentially haunt Dany. But it seems that this is really going to throw a wrench into Cersei getting food, because all the grain and the wheat has now been burnt. Jaime is potentially alive. When he charges at Dany, I was freaking out. And so he got saved, what it looks like Bronn at the last second, and then it just ends on that cliffhanger. So, I mean, this was probably the best episode of the season so far. This season's been phenomenal. I would give it a 9.7, because, again, the beginning was a little bit slow, but that being said, it really picked up in the last 20 minutes. And again, I think this season has the potential to have above all 9s, considering they have really condensed the story and they are just moving along and they are not wasting any time whatsoever. But I want to know what you think. What do you think about the episode? What do you think about Jaime? I mean, I can't, it's hard. I will always root for the dragons because they're dragons. It's not necessarily Daenerys, I just like her dragons a lot. So that being said, don't kill dragons, because if you kill dragons, we're going to riot. But let me know what you think. You could always find me at TomGrossiComedy.com, TomGrossi Comedy, or at Tom Grossi Comedy on Twitter. Check that out. Game of Toms, we are here every single Sunday right after the episode. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week.